Welcome on into the Gatemen Postgame Show. My name's Henrique DaMour. To my right, JD Raucci. To my left, Cam Stuart. And behind us, graveyard-like Spillane Field. But as the fog rolls in, the Gatemen roll out victors today. They retake first place with a 4-3 victory over now it feels like a small rivalry brewing with the Hyannis Harbor Hawks. The pitching staff was solid. The offense was serviceable. It was a nail-biter down the stretch. Let's get right into it, guys. What went well for them pitching-wise?
Pitching-wise, Ryan Garcia had a great outing. He just threw a ton of pitches. 80 pitches through 3 innings. So he didn't quite get the kind of start I had talked about in the pregame show where I wanted him to work seamlessly into Easton Lucas. Then Easton Lucas had to be really relied on to throw a lot of innings and really just couldn't get the job done. He was struggling with locating the breaking ball, missed up to a lot of guys. Things started to come unfolded, but the main thing that I noticed from the Gatemen pitchers today was the fact that they pitched incredibly well with runners in scoring position and with runners on. They got themselves into tough situations, but they wound up stranding 14 Hyannis Harbor Hawk runners. So the fact that it was a 4-3 win, that could the complexion of the game could have been completely changed, given the fact that they left 14 on. They left the bases loaded twice. So that's 6 guys just in 2 innings left on. I thought the pitching staff was really serviceable for most of the game, and then really when it came down to 2 outs, runners in scoring position, runners on, they were absolutely fantastic. We saw it with Zach Hart. He ended up coming in and getting the save, had a strong couple of innings, and then Cody Carroll really impressed me. 2 humongous strikeouts with the bases loaded to strand 3 runners. This game could have been completely different if it weren't for the Gatemen pitching staff and how well they pitch with runners in scoring position. So not overall the strongest day in the world in terms of how many hits and how many base runners you allow, but the situational pitching was stellar tonight for the Gatemen.
It feels like a little bit of a microcosm of the opening day game against Chatham. The Gatemen got out ahead early, and the opposition clawed back. We didn't get a 9-run 7th here, but the fact of the matter is the offense was just enough, and it really flowed through one guy today.
Yeah, Brian Packard had a pretty good game for the Gatemen today, but no, seriously, of course, the player of the game was Jeremy Ydens today. First pitch of the ball game from the Gatemen perspective, hits it over the left field wall, drives in a 2-run single the next inning as well. He's a guy who's looked completely befuddled over the last week, has been striking out at a clip that we aren't used to seeing him at, either here nor at UCLA, and he's really put it together tonight. The home run, another couple of hits, got on base 4 times tonight. It's just all over the place, and it's good to see him back, to put him another good hitter at the top of the Gatemen order, where it's been kind of a black hole, so to speak, at the top of the order for the Gatemen this year. To have him back up there is going to be a pretty good acquisition, if you will, for the Gatemen if he's able to keep going at this pace.
And Jeremy Ydens produced at the top, and everyone else followed suit. Brian Packard went 2 for 3 as well, but it was Ydens, and our Mary Orders got to catch up with him post-game.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Gatemen player of the game, Jeremy Ydens. Now, Jeremy, you had a home run and 3 RBIs. What was working out there for you today?
I'm just trying to hit the ball hard. Was just trying to get on base, and I was able to put one over the fence. And I thought the guys towards the bottom of the order did a good job of getting on base and put me in a good opportunity to get 3 RBIs.
And what kind of pitches were you seeing out there today?
I kind of a good mix of fastballs and curveballs, but I was able to capitalize on some mistakes, and I was lucky enough to find a couple holes.
And have you been working on anything particular in practice or batting practice?
I think I try not to be too pull happy and just kind of go where the pitch is pitched, and just trying to stick to my approach. I think there's some really talented pitchers, and they could easily get you off your approach, and so I'm just trying to stay with my approach and try to hit the ball hard.
And those talented pitchers you mentioned are definitely a big adjustment to the Cape League. Another big adjustment to the wooden bats. How have the wooden bats felt for you so far?
It's a little different than metal, obviously. A little bit heavier, a little bit end heavier. I use a little bit pretty balanced bat, but obviously you might get a couple more hits with metal and without wood, and so I think if you can hit the ball hard, and I think good things will happen. They'll find some holes, but that's my what I'm trying to do.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Guys, back to you.
Thank you very much to Mary. Really, the offense, we talked about it. It flowed through one guy today, Jeremy Ydens. Started things off with a bang, but it was good to see him get out of that slump because it looked really ugly. He wasn't just getting out. He was striking out at a clip. Like you said, we weren't used to seeing. He was one of the tougher outs in the Gatemen lineup for a long time. Ran into a little bit of a rut, but like good hitters do, they got out of it. He got out of it with a bang. Brian Packard, a pretty good game today, too. The Gatemen got 7 hits today. What else was going well for them?
Well, I think on the Ydens point, first off, it's good to have, with a good team like this, you just need someone to step up. And with Ydens coming out of the slump, he was really the show today. We saw it with Sahid Valenzuela last weekend in the game against Brewster. He was the offensive show. And you just need guys like that to step up every once in a while when nothing's really going right for the rest of the offense. And for the Gatemen tonight, it wasn't awful. I mean, they were putting together good at-bats, and they were drawing walks and getting on base. But they were efficient enough with the guys on base, with those hits by Ydens and getting the guys in. They didn't leave a lot of runners on base, but they weren't hitting very well tonight, to be honest with you. I don't know how else to say it. They were getting on base, and they were getting there, getting their opportunities, but they weren't too crisp on the base paths. Had a guy caught stealing. So it just, the bats weren't there tonight, but they found a way to win. They found a way to score 4 runs, and that's going to be enough to win most of your games with the pitching staff that we've seen with the Gatemen so far this year. So they just found a way. They weren't lighting it up tonight, but when you get guys on base, good things will happen.
Could have said it better myself. That was pretty comprehensive. JD, Hyannis put up a 9 spot on Wareham the last time out. What went poorly for them this time around?
Well, this time around, it was the fact that they didn't have 2 guys go off. Matthew Barefoot and Pedro Pages were unbelievable the other night at McKeon Park. Tonight, Matthew Barefoot continued to impress. He had a couple of hits, but Pages was just nowhere to be seen. 0 for 5 day for the guy that came in hitting .317 on the season. So that's really been the problem for Hyannis. When they lose big typically because they don't get production from maybe more than 1 guy at the most. Barefoot was productive tonight. Seth Gray had a pretty good night. Outside of those 2 guys, really this Hyannis lineup didn't deliver like we saw it top to bottom it did at McKeon Park on Tuesday. So moving forward, we'll have to see tomorrow at McKeon Park back there for another game, a home and home set coming up between these 2 teams. We'll have to see if Pages gets back on the right track. We'll have to see if Pages is even in the lineup. He's been one of your better hitters. He's a catcher on most days, but has played first base the last 2 games against the Gatemen. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I have faith in this Hyannis team. They have been good all season. The roster coming in didn't look like it was going to be the strongest one on the planet. A lot of mid-major guys, but those guys have really stepped up. The FAUs with Pedro Pages, the Campbells, who the heck has even heard of Campbell before? Not many people, with Matthew Barefoot. So the mid-majors have stepped up. They have been great. So it should be another really great matchup tomorrow at McKeon Park. Hopefully maybe not as moist as we saw it tonight at Spillane Field. It was a tough night in terms of the playing conditions toward the end of the game when the cold kind of swept in over Spillane Field after a very, very warm day, the warmest day probably of the summer thus far. So we will have to see how everything plays out tomorrow, but it should be another great matchup between 2 of the best teams of the Cape, probably the 2 best teams of the Cape as of right now.
I'd agree with you there. They battle again for first place tomorrow. At Spillane, the Gatemen are 2-0. At McKeon Park, the Harbor Hawks are 1-0. 2 blowouts, a close win for the Gatemen tonight, and tomorrow, another battle for first place. 3 of the last 4 games for the Gatemen. Exciting baseball coming your way from McKeon. For JD Raucci, for Cam Stuart, I'm Henrique DaMour. Have a great rest of your night.